Imagine a green lantern with no corpse, no power ring, and no willpower. This is the story of the absolute Green Lantern. I'm Andrew the Geek Master, and in today's video, we're diving into a brand new take on the Emerald Knight, now part of a new universe. A world created by Darkseid, where he has no advantage whatsoever. We've already covered the absolute versions of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash here on the channel, which you can check out in the cards and comments below. To not miss stories like this one, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and let's get started. The story begins with Hal Jordan walking along a highway in the Nevada desert in California. He whispers to himself to not be afraid, but when he closes his eyes, he has a vision of some kind of light ring in a vast black void and hears a voice in his head telling him not to be afraid. He quickly opens his eyes again, terrified because something is clearly wrong. At this moment, a police car pulls up beside him, and the officer asks what he's doing walking alone on a Sunday in the middle of nowhere in the scorching heat. Hal can't answer. He's speechless. And since he doesn't take his hands out of his pockets, the officer asks him what he has in his pocket. This scares Hal completely. He doesn't respond and simply starts to cry, leaving the officer suspicious that he might be on drugs or even carrying a weapon. Because of this, the officer draws his weapon and orders Hal to take his hands out of his pockets immediately. Hal takes his right hand out of his pocket but keeps his left hand hidden as he desperately tries to tell the officer that something happened to him. But the officer just yells at Hal to show both hands or he'll shoot. And indeed, Hal closes his eyes and takes his left hand out of his pocket. When he opens his eyes, we see that the officer is simply gone. It looks like he was disintegrated, because in his place is just his badge and a small crater in the road. With that, Hal continues walking with his left hand in his pocket, whispering that he's sorry over and over. Eventually, Hal Jordan reaches a small town and walks into a diner called May and Moe's. The customers give this stranger some weird looks. After all, it's a remote town, and Hal showed up without any kind of vehicle. He asks for water, and the diner owner gives him a bottle. She then starts asking him questions, like if he was walking out there, or if his car broke down. She's pretty friendly, and Hal begins to explain that something strange happened. But at that moment, the game on the TV is interrupted by an emergency news bulletin. The report shows something bizarre that just appeared out of nowhere in the middle of Evergreen, Nevada. A giant green lantern that looks like it fell straight from the sky, crushing several buildings. Suddenly, the anchor gets a message through her earpiece and says they can't show any more footage and an official statement is being prepared. The broadcast cuts off, and everyone in the diner wonders what just happened in Evergreen. Hearing their speculations, Hal notices a mark on the diner counter that looks a lot like that glowing ring he saw earlier when he closed his eyes. The thing is, Hal Jordan is from Evergreen, and he knows exactly how it all began. 5 days earlier in Evergreen, Hal Jordan, who worked as a collectibles salesman, was having lunch with his friends, John Stewart, an architect, and Joe Moline, who had just returned from Coast City after getting divorced. Hal asks why she came back to Evergreen, a tiny town with practically no local economy, just a pit stop on the way to California. She refuses to talk about her life in Coast City, saying it's all in the past, but Hal points out that she's still wearing her wedding ring. Joe takes it off and leaves it on the table. Just then, a group of bikers speeds by, engines roaring. Hal says they should report it to Guy Gardner, the town's police officer. Moline doesn't want to deal with Gardner. He's been trying to get her to rejoin the local police as sheriff, but she turned it down because of some unresolved personal issues between them. While the friends are talking, another motorcyclist rides by. But unlike the others, this bike crashes at high speed into some kind of green wall that appeared out of nowhere, resulting in a brutal accident. Seeing this, Hal can't just stand there. Always helpful, he runs to try and help the man, but he discovers he can't pass through the green wall, which seems more like a force field, the kind you see in movies. Frightened, Joe tells Hal not to touch it since they don't know what it is, and it could even be radioactive, while John desperately tries to call emergency services, but there's no signal on his phone. At this point, John picks up Joe's wedding ring, which had fallen during the chaos, and on the other side of the force field, they see the other bikers approaching. But strangely, they just circle around and leave. It's as if they didn't see their friend dead on the road, or as if they didn't notice anything unusual at all. And to make things even stranger, Joe notices something bizarre coming from above. They're inside a dome, some kind of force field, and at the top of it, there's a green lantern with a giant alien floating in the center. Back in the present, Hal says aloud that the alien's name was Sur, and that he came from somewhere else, and the symbol in the sky belonged to him. The people in the restaurant realize Hal is from Evergreen, and ask if that thing on the news was a spaceship. Hal says the alien called it a green lantern, and that's when he starts crying, saying it's all his fault. Hal explains that he made the mistake of wanting to be a hero, and that's why Sur did something to him and gave him a weapon. Seeing Hal with his left hand in his pocket, the restaurant owner starts reaching for her gun under the counter, while one of the customers named Earl asks what Hal has in his pocket. At that moment, Hal remembers that this was the same question the officer on the road asked, so fearing the worst, he tries to leave. However, Earl grabs Hal's arm, demanding to know what he did. When he pulls Hal's hand out, it's revealed that Hal has a black hand with dark energy swirling around it. The worst part is that Hal has no control over this power, and just like what happened with the police officer, Earl is simply disintegrated, leaving only his necklace behind, shocking everyone. Hal keeps walking, desperately trying to focus and keep his hand away from the people. But unfortunately, he can't control the hand because it reacts to danger. With no other choice, the restaurant owner finally pulls out her gun and shoots Hal's right arm. And in response, the hand performs a massive attack that ends up killing everyone in the restaurant. After this terrifying scene, Hal doesn't know what to do anymore. He hopes that the shot he received will kill him, and consequently, kill that thing. But when he touches his wound with the black hand, he's surprised to be completely healed. It's then that Hal realizes that the hand won't let him die. And to finish this epic issue, in the middle of all this chaos, a green glow invades the restaurant, signaling the arrival of a new person. And we see that it's Joe Mulline. Yes, Joe Mulline is going to be the first human Green Lantern in this new universe. She enters the destroyed restaurant and asks what happened to Hal Jordan. And that's how we wrap up the first issue, which kicked off really strong. Hal Jordan just wanted to be a hero, and now he's stuck with a curse that destroys everything around him. All signs point to him becoming the terrifying villain known as Black Hand in this absolute universe. On the other hand, Joe Mulline is the Green Lantern here, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when the two of them meet again, especially since they're friends. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapters. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.